Marty McFly, king of receipts.
In New York, the feminism is high. There's a lot of strong, independent, hear me roar type of sentiment going on. And that's cool, but I feel like it could be an overreach sometimes because it's almost like they say, I could do it all by myself, but I still want you to help me and do all the things you used to do. So it becomes like an issue. It's like...
Okay. What is feminism for you?
Oh, I don't particularly believe in it, but if I was just to go by definition...
But it's not something to believe. Yeah. I'm questioning you. What do you think that is it? Well, what is feminism?
I would go by the different waves, because in America they have like first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave.
I mean, I can explain the waves if you want me to. That's what I was going to do anyway. So basically, you have, I'll jump into pre-feminism later, because that was just a matter of women, the pursuit of women being able to have equal say in the child, because they call this the tender year doctrine. So before that, this is like British law, men controlled the kids. It was kind of like how the Arabs do it now, where if divorce happens, the rarity that it happens, the kids are under control of the man. And it used to be like this in Europe too. And then they started in British law, and America inherited British law as far as their old laws, and we built on top of it. So that's kind of like pre-feminism. Then you have like the first wave, which was pretty much being able to vote. That's what it is. Being able to vote and have control of property rights. They had white women had some property rights, but having that like codified as equal to man. Second wave was the ability to be able to work in the workplace. So access to employment versus, white. A lot of this is all gauged to white women too, by the way. Other groups had other things, like black women. It was more about racism than feminism up until a certain point. So usually with these waves, it's mainly white women. So it's basically the right to vote, then the right to work, or the ability to access it in a normal way and getting that priority. Third wave, in between third wave, it's kind of like the education system being messed with. And third wave was really what they'll say is the right to be paid the same as a man. And then this is where a lot of the quote unquote sexual revolutionary part happened. So less of a stigma on doing certain things. But and then you have what we have our current wave, which they really can't tell you what it is. But what they will say if you push them is they'll say the right to live, the right to not be beat up, the right to be safe. They'll say to walk in the middle of the night and not have to worry about anything. That's what they'll say.
I didn't understand the last part that I say.
Basically, when you push them, they will say it's the right to live. So the right to be safe in the middle of the night, because with the other waves, they have access to employment. It's still technically debatable if they get paid the same as a man, but they'll say they don't. They have obviously the right to vote. Nobody's questioning it. They don't have that. They have representation in the political system at acceptable levels in accordance to their population, which is half. And they have they clearly have the right to work, as women are more represented in the workplace than men are in the United States. Overall.
Do you think so?
Yeah, women are more employed than men in the United States as a group. As a group, they're more employed.
Sorry about that.
So they're not boxed out of any job that they, for the most part, want. They can get. Very few jobs they can't get. Obviously, men are going to be more represented in the blue collar fields because those are more labor fields. But quite frankly, if women want those jobs, they can have those jobs as well. They're not forced out of those jobs. So the laws don't keep them out of any job. Probably the military is another thing, but women are in the military a lot as well. It's just a matter of if they're in kinetic combat. And truth be told, women are not fighting to be in kinetic combat. Usually, if women are going to do anything that involves killing somebody, it's going to be dealing with drones, which they're fine with. For the most part, they're fine with that. But if they do want to be in kinetic combat, there's probably a couple of barriers to that because they have to fulfill certain standards that men have to fulfill. And so there's a debate about if those standards should be lowered. And there's been headway on that, regardless if people agree with it or not. Also, women don't really want to be drafted. They want an exemption. They wanted that to maintain. You have men saying that if you want to be equal, then you need to be equal to the draft. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be forced into kinetic combat, but they need to be equal. And so those are kind of the current debates that are going on. But other than that, and the reason why the waves are important is because a second wave feminist and a third wave feminist is not the same. For example, and I'm going to say this and then I'll pass the mic. A second wave feminist in America, a good example of a second wave feminist would be like Hillary Clinton. That's a good example. She comes from that school. Second wave feminists are not necessarily, they don't really agree with the sexual revolution. They don't. So if you have women that they want to push, they can do what they want to without any consequence or without men judging them. Second wave feminists don't believe that's feminism. Now they don't go out of their way to get in front of that because they agree with the abortion rights, but for the most part there's a certain decorum that needs to be maintained, and that creates a little bit of friction. But for the most part they stay on code because Hillary Clinton's old, so the younger women are gonna have to take on the mantle, so they kind of don't push that, but they don't fully agree with that. So these waves, these women are of different schools. So it does matter, the waves. That's how we look at it. And the other part is men of today, they agree more so with certain waves than others. Very few men are going to tell you that women shouldn't be able to vote. Very few men are going to tell you that women shouldn't have access to work. There'll be more that may say that, but have access to work. Where we start to run into problems is really the dating part, the sexual revolutionary part, what we like to call the I want my cake and eat it too. I want equality, but I don't want equal responsibility as a horn to those rights that come along with equality. That's where men start to have a problem, because we're still expected to bear the burden of full responsibility. And in a lot of ways, women have more rights in the United States than men. When it comes to children, when it comes to certain laws, when it comes to their ability to tap into the courts. And that's really the issue where you start to see men in America push back. But that's my part for right now.
I don't know how to start that. Like, okay.
Well, keep in mind that I'm saying from America's perspective, I don't know. Again, Brazil is going to operate in a different way because obviously America is America. So my question really to you would be, what is your experience as a woman in Brazil? Because that's going to be different than what a woman is going to have in America, because feminism has been around longer in the United States as well. So it's just going to measure differently. So that's how it is in the U.S. That doesn't necessarily mean that what I said is true for the U.S. is true for in other places in the world. So it's going to be a different perspective. So I get that.
Yeah, like when we talk about feminism, like I think that we just expect, like you say, like we want like same rights. Like we don't want to have like the same job in the same company. I have like the same graduation than you have, and then for some reason you are like receiving more money than I. Or I don't want to walk in the street and feel that I'm not safe in a different way than you. Like if I go to streets and ask for a man, like, what are you afraid when you are alone, like late at home? Like, it's different. You're afraid, you're scared. It's different than I. Like, we are afraid about a guy, just whatever. But you can do that without worries. Or, okay, the vote is something that we already have, but before was not like this. Or if I'm in a room with I don't know, a lot of guys in my company talking about job, like sometimes they don't hear me, like they prefer to hear other guys. We just want to have like respect. Actually, that's for me, that is the principle of feminism. We just want to have respect for who we are. Oh, sorry, wait. For who we are. We are, yeah, for who we are. Like you have, like you guys have. Maybe you don't feel that because you are a guy, but like a woman, we can see the difference of treatment when we are in certain places, like a woman.
Yeah, I mean Latin America. I know Brazil is a Latin country, but it's kind of like its own thing, obviously because of size in comparison to other Latin culture, Latin countries. But I've been told by Latinas, you know, this idea of machismo and stuff that doesn't exist in the same potency in the United States. Because here's the problem. The problem is that the elite men, mainly white men, the powers that be, they use feminism as a class warfare tactic. So there's certain things that women can do with 90% of men that they can't pull with the top 10% of men. They like that respect factor and stuff you're talking about. Unless that woman is connected to a man, like for instance Ivanka Trump, Donald Trump's daughter, and she's done things in her own way. She's become her own person. But unless you're like an elite woman like that, as far as you come from a certain class or you've achieved a certain background, you know, if you deal with the top, 1% of the top 5%, there's going to be different game rules, and they can enforce those rules. Versus, and with the regular men, it's not going to be that way. Like in the corporate arena, women are very well represented, and if they are in that position, it's usually because a man put them there. Or if you're like somebody like Sheryl Sandberg, they were in the beginning of these companies. So yeah, there's some things that they complain about. But the thing is, a lot of American women like to use the plight of women in other parts of the world. And they try to, act like that's the same as what they deal with here. And that's not true. It's not true it's not true anymore. And even when it was true, there was reasons for that. For example, women couldn't vote because women weren't expected to die in the military. The reality is, if we had to fight these wars, men had to die. Women didn't. So as accordance to that right, this is one of the reasons why African Americans were able to fight for civil rights. It wasn't because of slavery. It was because we went and fought every war that that America asked us to, despite that, including Vietnam, in which they, and I'm not trying to bring racism into it. I'm just saying they didn't just do that. These presidents saw that happen and saw how we were persecuted after we fought for their wars. And that's when they started to really say, yeah, you can't do that. Because they saw how people didn't tell the difference between a black man that didn't fight in the war and one that did. It was a distinction. And then you're talking about like white men that didn't fight in wars. So what happens is there's a certain bond that's built in the military because you're having to put your life in somebody's hands, right? And so that's where you start to see stuff start to change. So it wasn't just people felt bad and did it. It was a practical reason. Now, going back to the vote thing, they even though women weren't going to fight in these wars, you have World War II in which women participated. When men fought in the wars, what did the women do? The women became nurses when they weren't nurses before. Women were in the factories. This was more a necessity. And so because they contributed to the war effort in those ways, and they had already had the right to vote, but this is when stuff like that started to really, really, really be affirmed. This is when the women started being able to petition for different rights, because obviously they're contributing. So it's not that, people just feel bad and they just say so. There's certain contributions and stuff that happens to where they can make a case for that to happen. So even though they're not fighting with guns, they're still fighting, with logistics. And so this is where they started to get more rights. And I can go into history of the United States. But as far as the walk at night, nobody's safe walking at night. Like now, Brazil is a different animal versus the United States, where 911 is like even if your cell network doesn't work, 911 will work. So it's a different situation, but a lot of what's going on in the United States right now is they don't know what they want. They have everything they want. Now, that's not true for every other country, for other countries. But in the United States, they have everything they could want. So now what it is now a lot of times they
But
use
how can you
feminism.
know that they have everything they want?
Well, very simply. I asked them, if you ask them what is their perfect scenario and what do you want, they can't really tell you. They start repeating stuff they already have.
Yeah, but you
So
are
they'll
saying
say,
that about the individual vision. Like you can't say about the whole country because that is not a fact. Like if you do like a validate, I don't know how to say that, like a validation research, that is not true. I guess like
in America,
it's not a fact.
In America it is. Women have more rights than men in the United States. Like I'll give you a perfect example with children.
But they have those rights because okay, wait, sorry, you can say.
No, I was gonna say women control the children, and by the way, every right a woman has, men gave it to them. Like men gave it.
But
to
you
them.
want to control children? Like I don't see that like a society thing. Like
yeah,
what's the point about control children?
Yes, because we have to pay child support. We're burdened. We go to jail if child support is not paid in the United States. And when I say control children,
but if it's your children, you need to pay. Of course, if it's your children, you need to pay. It's your children.
When I say control children, men don't have any rights to their children. I use the term control. We don't have rights to our kids. Meaning what the woman says goes, and the courts enforce that. The family court actually operates outside of our Constitution in the United States. It's a special section in which judges have authority in order to, and this comes back to that tender year doctrine thing I was talking about. They will actually take kids from men and then make them pay child support and not have rights to their kids. Happens, and this happens to white men too. This just doesn't happen to black men. This actually happens to white men too. They will liquidate, and they do that because child support doesn't go directly to the woman. It goes to the state, and the state doles it out to the woman. So they create a profit center. Again, I'm not telling you how Brazil works. I'm telling you how it works here. And as a result,
but in your perspective, like I say, like you are saying how it works in your country, but first of all, you are a man. You doesn't know how it's live like a woman. Second of all, like you are one person. Like you are not showing me research or percentage. Like I just can believe in your word is everything you have. You are not showing me facts. Like that is a fact. That is not something that I can really believe.
I mean, and I kind of said this in the Telegram. A lot of stuff that we say is going to be very hard to believe because it's outside of what your experience is. But just understand that we have, like, for instance, in our community, we have, and what you're saying is absolutely valid, by the way. And so as a result of that, we have PhDs, like we have like 5 PhDs in our group alone that they teach in school. And they validate everything I'm talking about. Like they have all the research and all the stuff. So yeah, I didn't bring that here today, but I brought that. But that research does exist, and these are certain things that even women don't really debate. And it's actually gotten so bad now that what's happening is in America, what men are doing is men are not getting violent. Men are doing something worse. Do you know what that is? What could be worse than men getting violent? Men checking out. Men basically are not having children. They're not participating in the system, and basically they're doing them. And the system can't run without men's participation. And so it's getting, and I'm talking about white men. See, if it was African American men, they wouldn't care as much because that's part of the course. But when white men start doing it, it's a problem because white men are the majority population. And it's getting so bad that now women, I can actually show you, and I'll give you videos on Telegram too, so you can hear it from a woman's perspective. White women, black women, give me your pick of what you want to see and I can show you. Older women, younger women, they're actually starting to speak up against this and saying that these laws have to be balanced out. That's actually a big reason why abortion was given back to the states to make the decision versus it being federal mandate. Because what's going on is men are not participating in having kids and doing all this, and then the women are starting to crack out because the system can't run if we don't allow it. And until the system becomes more fair, and they balance some of this stuff out with actual equality, not what I call feminine supremacy, then dudes are just gonna do them, because we can't be forced to participate in the system. So for example, when men see that the state uses the children as a weapon to bind us to the state, men are not having kids, because they're using that to anchor us. And this is not just black men. The white population is dropping at a very rapid rate, and that's scaring the United States. So I get the perspective thing, but understand it from the debate standpoint. The debate has happened, and we know what's going on. I mean, the thing is, we have the research. It's not a matter of, perspectives in that way. It's kind of like if I punch you in the face, it's not my opinion whether I got hit or not. And this has been happening for a couple of generations now. And so the women really don't know what to do, because they can't make us participate. They can't make us not prioritize our lives, first.
It's just funny, you are, everything you are saying, you are worried about child support or whatever, things about that, but we are worried about other stuff, more important, equality paid. You say that you have that, but it's not true. That is not a real thing. We don't have equality payment in jobs and whatever. Safety, we don't have that too. If you do a little research, you see the percentage of women violence or murder or whatever is high. Is not something
not
low
compared to men.
Oh my God. And
well, maybe
even for that, different reasons, we are whatever, but okay.
That may be true in Brazil, but in the United States, it's not even calculable the level of violence that women have to deal with versus what men have to deal with, whether it's in jail, prison, it's not even, they don't, in fact, what they typically do is they never even compare it gender to gender. They compare it black women to white women, or they, for instance, with black people, they never compare what black men go through and black women go through. They always compare it to individual genders, because if you compare it versus gender, it's not even calculable. I mean, it happens obviously, and women are vulnerable, but at the same time, women, in my opinion, women have to worry a lot more about what other women do, because the laws are not as severe when women harm other women than when men harm other women. And then if we're talking race, oh God, let a black man touch a white woman. Hey, let a black man get hit by a white woman. He's going to jail. And Jonathan Majors
Majors, I was just about to say that. King the Conqueror.
What?
And it can be on TV. Let a white woman hit a black man, and they're gonna look at, oh, what did you do to hit?
She actually follows the MCU. So the actor that played King the Conqueror in Loki, the black guy. You want to let her? Do you know what happened to him?
You can say.
Okay, you want to tell her what happened to Jonathan Majors?
That's not. You know what? That's not actually a fair because that's a white woman versus a black man. So we know how that story ends. But if you look at what happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, that's to me more accurate, because both of those people are Caucasian. So this is a Caucasian man and a Caucasian woman, an older man and a younger woman. And even in that trial, Johnny Depp had to petition for the courts to live stream the thing, because, and a lot of stuff came out about Amber Heard because it was a defamation lawsuit. They made Johnny Depp lose a lot of stuff. And he ended up winning the defamation lawsuit because it was live streaming. Everything came out on how violent Amber Heard was. So pretty much my main thing that I want to communicate is women won in the United States. Now, what women deal with everywhere else is a little bit of a different thing. Europe, I would say in Europe and Canada, women have more of an advantage than they even do in the United States, because Canada is off the chains. But Canada is only 40 million people. Europe, they have, like especially in the Nordic countries and stuff, yeah, the women won. They pretty much got that on lock. Everywhere else, yeah, y'all got stuff. Definitely, y'all like Latin America. Definitely, y'all got complaints. I definitely understand that, and I don't question a lot of that. Y'all are pretty much at, I would say, maybe 2.0 feminism. So y'all have a long way to go. But as far as like in the United States, oh yeah, oh yeah, they ain't got nothing to complain about. They may think they got something to complain about, but usually what it is usually what it is with women is they want to basically blame men for things that they are accountable for. So the way they look at it is nothing's their fault. Everything is men's fault. Anything they do, it's men's fault. And they put that under the umbrella of feminism. And so what men do is men tend to just check out and leave them their own devices, and then they still want to find a way to blame men somehow, even though women actually have slightly more political power than men. And here's the thing, I'm not saying the reason for that is men are more competitive with each other. So whether it's white men, black men, Latin men, or rich men or poor men, we have our own competing interests and we're more individual minded, versus women are better at coding up as a group. So black women get the bad end of the stick, but they'll still see themselves as a woman before they're black. So they'll still code up under like a Hillary Clinton, so to speak, or a white woman, so to speak. They'll still do that. And so as a result, they're more of a unified block. So they can push laws in a way. Then you got men that, because I call them daughter dudes, they got daughters. So they are very empathetic to their daughters. So they'll pass laws that mess men up to, in their mind, protect their daughters. And in the long run, that doesn't protect their daughters, because what happens is men check out and they're subject to the environment. So this is why this stuff happens. So when you see a lot of people pushing back, this is why it gets pushed back. This is the dynamic in the U.S. And Canada's worse. And in a lot of countries in Europe, it's actually worse. In Western Europe, I'm talking in particular. Eastern Europe, yeah, them women got a lot to complain about. They get popped in the mouth. Their men drink a lot. They got a lot to complain about. So I'm under no illusions that there's countries that women have a lot to complain about. There are definitely countries where they don't have licenses. They can't drive by themselves. They're not educated like they should be. I'm definitely sure in Brazil, there's a lot of stuff to complain about. I'm not here to say globally feminism is just a lie and there's not things can be balanced. But what I am saying is in the United States of America, the laws are built to protect women and they are activated in that way. I mean, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm saying, what I'm saying. And it's not just an opinion. This is stuff, like, I've been doing this for like 10 years. This is not the stuff that I'm just saying, just to be saying it, you know. But yeah. Yep.
So, Erica, what would be your take? So that's like the take on American feminism, what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, to sum it up, the laws favor women. The women are actually more employed than the men. There's not really a threat of violence, and if violence does happen, the punishment is severe.
Oh, and Marty, another thing, as far as the money aspect to it, where you see that women complain about not getting paid as much of a man, those are not in lower end jobs. Those are in the corporate America jobs. So your managerial jobs, your top 10% jobs, top 5% jobs, that's where you'll start. That's where you see that complaint at. However, if you look at like jobs, like if you're talking about lawyers or certain career fields, because you can actually be sued for that, and women definitely win those lawsuits. But when you talk about those managerial business jobs, where it can be real arbitrary what somebody gets paid based on experience, that is where you see that complaint. You know, if it's gonna have merit anywhere, it'll have merit there. But any job where it's like a standard hourly wage as to what you get paid, if a man is seen as being paid more than a woman on an hourly basis, yeah, that's illegal, and they are held accountable to that.
Yeah, but it's illegal, but it still happen. Like even like in high examples, like we saw like sometimes even actors, like famous actors, like getting paid, like women's actors getting paid like less than men actors for like similar position. Like they are like a protagonist, like sometimes in the same movie. And that is like a very how I say, like is an example that is already like outside, but like we can see like it's something that exists, like some positions, like even like the representation, like if you saw for some companies or for politics places, you don't see like what you see normally, like you see like some white guys is everything that you see. Like you rarely see some white woman, and then like we rarely see like some black guys, and then we rarely see some black women.
So as far as the Hollywood thing, that's very easy. It's the same reason in sports they don't sell tickets. Like the women that sell tickets can get paid. They can actually push harder for that. For
Like
example,
Zendaya.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But Hollywood is weird that way because dudes be getting shysted too sometimes. But as far as just keeping on the gender, like if you look at the MCU, Robert Downey Jr. This is one example. This is money everything, but this is the example. Robert Downey Jr. got paid like $20 million per flick, after the first Iron Man because he was problematic, so he was making his money back. And then the second highest paid person, and again, this is one example. This is not like everything in Hollywood. I'm not saying it is. Scarlett Johansson was the second highest paid person, actor or actress. She got paid $9 million a picture. And she was the last one to get her own movie. Now you can argue that was BS. She was the last one to get her own movie, especially if they were paying her $9 million a picture. But the reason why she got paid $9 million a picture was because she was the biggest She was the biggest. Look, I use actress, actor, actress. Actress of women, actors of men. They're the same. But she was the biggest actress outside of Robert Downey Jr. She was the biggest one, and Scarlett Johansson has demonstrated she can sell tickets on her own, more so than Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans, and that was reflected in what she got paid. Also, her team was very savvy as far as making sure she got paid what she got paid, because when they tried to play with her own movie, she sued and she won. And you can argue the fact she had to sue was a problem, which I understand that. But with the thing with the actresses though, men are more willing to walk away from roles and take the risks. The women aren't. They want to take a check, and they play with them on that. But ultimately, in Hollywood, your leverage is your ability to put people in seats. If you can't put people in seats, it's what they give you. And yeah, they give some white women a lot of money that they shouldn't. They give some white men a lot of money they shouldn't. They give certain black men that like to wear dresses a lot of money that they shouldn't, which is something the African American men complain about. But ultimately, when it comes to entertainment, your leverage comes from your ability to generate money. And if you can't, then it's up to how much they're willing to invest in you. And as far as feminism goes, women got to do a better job at supporting the women they want to see. That's another problem. Like when they create these superhero movies with these women, like Captain Marvel, men saw that movie more than women. And the men didn't like the movie. So a lot of times women don't support other women so they can justify getting that money at the audience level. That's the same thing with the WNBA and female sports as well. But that's like another thing. So it just is what it is. But that's different than like the business productive jobs that I'm referring to. But yeah. Yep. Let's see what people are saying.
Thank you.
So did you have like any because I know you said something about is there any particular actor where you could point to and you could say this actor deserves to get paid more and she didn't, and this is the reason why?
No, it was an example, like for sure exists if we research, but I was just trying to explain something. But yeah, but I think like it's really unfair you say that women can't complain because we have a lot going on, and I'm sure that is similar. Even if you say that is not, I'm sure that is similar in U.S. too. Like, yeah, I just saw like here, for example, you was saying that the men are more like have more violence with men than women, and okay, but like it's not our fault if men are killing men or hurting men. Like, but men kill men and women are killed for men's too. That's the point. Like the violence with women comes from you men, doesn't come from us. And it's different. Like, for example, I just saw here that according to the National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, 35.6% of women and 28.5% of men in the U.S. have experienced rape, physical violence, and are stalking by intimate partner in their lifetime. So you see, like, it's like what I want is that you search for some facts. Like, don't say your experience like about what you watch on YouTube or what you watch on TV, but search like real research, real facts. Then you can say something. I just wish like that you guys could like read more facts, not just based on your opinion in YouTube or something.
Absolutely. Like most of the stuff, YouTube is what we use to communicate. That's not what we use to get facts. I mean, I told you we have PhDs. I mean, Dr. Tia Johnson, Dr. Robert Neal.
PhD doesn't mean anything. That doesn't help you to know how life actually works.
But do you think most women you see what you're saying is most women anecdotal experience matters, because that's what they're pulling from. They're not pulling from research. They're pulling from their own anecdotal experience. And that like most of your hardcore feminists are Caucasian women, like that have that are the safest in the United States. Like most of the women that will produce that type of research are Caucasian women that if you look at them wrong, you can die. They've never experienced what they're talking about. Those are the ones that go the hardest. And so the Chinese finger trap that happens with white women in particular is if white women were being assaulted by other men, there would be a brutal, unforgiving response, whether it's black men, Hispanic men, whatever men. So we know for a fact, it's not even debatable that other races of men are not messing with them. So then white women have to then say, okay, are they going to throw their own sons and husbands under the bus? Because their power directly draws from them, their economic power. And when I say power, here's the thing. White women live longer than white men. So the kind of balance of scales is when white men die, who gets the money? White women. They're the ones that control it. So even before they had the right to vote, they still inherited a lot of property and property rights. So
again, about safety, like who is more likely, like who is more likely to hurt or kill a man, like woman or a man?
Well, that's a biological response for strength, unfortunately,
it's a question. Like who is? It's just a question.
It's going to be men, but here's the truth: feminism can't solve that problem. There will never be a reality in this world.
Actually, yes. No. We talk about that's about all the problems. It's about like homophobic people or racism or sexism. Like we talk about that to try to teach people and make people think about it, and then we are trying to build a new generation of people that try to have a better behavior. And of course, we need to talk about that. We don't solve problems just ignoring or just saying like you were saying. We need to talk about stuff so then we can solve it.
That it's not the first of all, even in the domestic partnerships that you're talking about, those are men that are being like men are not assigned men. This is not like the Middle East. Women are actively dealing with that's what doesn't get talked about. Like men, like even in they say like men that are submissive are boring. They're not sexually attracted to those men. They're picking those men. Notice how it said domestic partnerships and it didn't say random acts of violence. So random men are going after random women, which means those folks chose to be with each other in a liberal society in the United States. They're not. It's different than like in India where you're giving a man, they do assigned marriages. So that woman doesn't really have a choice. And so she's got to tolerate what she's given. I'm not questioning that. That's crap. And Indian women are kind of pushing back on that, especially when they get in the United States. But that's not true. So that's not true here. So when women are talking about violence, these are men that these women are actively dealing with. Black women pull that too. Black women tend to like men that are criminals. And when black men tell them you shouldn't deal with those types of bad men, well, we're looked at as idiots. And we can't get sex. So what are you going to do? We can't physically force them not to deal with certain men that they're sexually attracted to. And so then so when they talk about what changing the behavior, when you're talking about a domestic partnership, you want to change the behavior of the man that you chose. Why don't you pick a different man?
Yeah, because of course, when we are dating someone, like if I'm dating a guy, of course, the first thing that the guy will say to me is like, I'm an asshole. I'm an idiot. Like you shouldn't trust me because I'm violent. I'm whatever. It's the first thing that a guy would say to me. For sure I wouldn't discover there like after 2 years that I'm already with him. You think that women choose a man because they are bad people? No at all. Like normally when I didn't finish. Like normally we start a relationship with people that we trust, with people that we think that is a good person. And then you guys just show up that you are not actually a good person. Also have like all the manipulation that you do, like think that we are wrong about something.
That may be how it happens in Brazil, but in the United States, women are very smart. They know what type of men that they're typically dealing with. And back in the past, that might have been true because men's access to sex. Because here's the thing: the women that typically suffer domestic abuse, they tend to go from relationship to relationship suffering. It's like certain women that they tend to have this. So this is where they start looking at how you grew up and what you saw growing up to kind of socialize you to think that behavior was acceptable. These are women that typically suffer the same pattern. You know, it's like, and so they've researched why that is with those women. They've done this extensively in the black community. They've done this in the white community as well. So it might be something about their socialization, but ultimately the thing about dudes that are pretending they're just these Ted Bundy charismatic figures and they're just nice. And then once you get into bed with them, they just all of a sudden just transform. And even if that's the case, that's accounted for too. That's what Me Too is for. So usually, like for instance, when women get violent with men, that's the story they always tell, and they usually get away with it when that wasn't really true. See, what the research also shows is that women initiate the most violence. It's just that men can finish it because we're stronger. So it's not that men just out of nowhere, they just pop off on women. That's not acceptable. That can mess up your job, your employment, your status in society, even for white men. If you get accused of doing that, that can destroy you and destroy your money. So I get what you're saying. What you're talking about is certain societies that create an atmosphere, a climate where it's kind of like an umbrella that can kind of put women in a vice grip, where if they say something, they're punished. It's in the little things and in the details. I get what you're saying because I've seen that. That's not in the United States though. And that's definitely not in the United States it's definitely not in the United States for white women. But even with black women to a certain extent, it's not in the United States either because they look for ways of punishing black men. So I'm not telling you these things don't exist. But what I am telling you, in the United States, they exist a lot less, if at all, than they exist in other countries.